Welcome to Kind of Funny Games Daily for Friday, May 28th, 2021. I am your host, Jan Garcia, and joining me is Kind of Funny's one and only the future class of video games, Mr. Verified himself, Blessing Adeoye Jr.
I want to shout out three things. One, you absolutely killed that doing the Greg Miller at Blessing Adeoye Jr. So shout out to you for that. Two, I want to shout out the fact that this is the first time that we've hosted together where you're in the hosting seat and I'm playing passenger, which is super dope. And three, I want to shout out the fact that it's been such a fucking crazy week that yesterday we got like multiple different reveals across Horizon Forbidden West, a bunch of Sonic shit. What was the Cobra Kai trailer? And we just got off of doing a Far Cry 6 reacts. It's been an awesome
Joker
week.
thing?
Was there a Joker thing?
Yeah, isn't it was confirmed that Joker 2 is happening and it's the same director or something like that.
Okay, so maybe it's not all great stuff. But hey, we're here. It's Friday.
There's Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest stuff happened.
Dying Light 2 happened also.
Dying Light 2 happened. A lot of those things happened, which we're going to talk about all those things. But Blessing, how's your morning going? How's your day going?
It's been a pretty busy morning. Yesterday was absolutely crazy, and so by the time I went to bed and woke up this morning, I woke up and I was super exhausted in a way that I wasn't expecting. I was like, shit, I really worked yesterday. I was on camera for pretty much most of the day, and so when I woke up, I was like, oh shoot. But also, I'm very excited to be on camera because one, we did reacts to Kevin. Can we talk about the reacts we did this morning? Is that a thing that's out?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it. Is it up? I don't know. Maybe.
But the movie is out for everybody, right?
Yeah. That wasn't anything special for us.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we watched A Quiet Place 2 last night. We recorded, me, Tim, and Kevin recorded our reactions this morning. And let me tell you, you want to check out those reactions because that movie is something. That movie is great. And we did the first part of that review spoiler free. And so if you just want this is our basic reactions, you can go in there, press pause when we get to spoilers, and then come back after you see the movie and watch the rest. But it's been a fantastic morning.
Without getting too far into it, because obviously people can watch if they want to, better than Quiet Place 1? The same?
Oh, it's a tough question. I think better, honestly.
I think really
better,
impressive.
With the exception, I think Kevin disagrees with me. I think the ending of the first one was way better, but I think overall the second one was better.
Quiet Place 2, as a concept, is giving me Last of Us 2 energy, where it's this doesn't need to exist, but then when it comes out, it actually ends up being fire. So, yeah, I loved the first one, so I'll definitely be checking it out.
Kevin, would you? Where are you at with that?
I don't know about better. I think it's different in a great way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one of the first one was so good, and part of that was because no one expected it to be what it was. And this one, now people can, at least expect the second one. But, it's suspenseful as shit. If you like suspense, you're going to be suspended. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the thing is, the Last of Us comparison, weirdly, is super apt with this movie. There are multiple things that you can compare with The Last of Us, but I think The Last of Us Part 1 to Part 2 thing also holds where it goes for something different. The overall thing, it is a quiet place, and so you're getting a lot of silence in the movie, and it is the same.
Can you imagine if it was just loud?
Yeah,
a totally different style.
Quiet place. This time we're going in loud. The overall movie, the tone of it is a lot of the same, but the story and the actual goal and focus of the movie has shifted a lot from the first movie, and so it feels like it stands on its own very well in a way where both movies feel like they justify their own existences really well.
Yeah, well, I'll have to definitely check that out. But for now, let's get into today's stories, which include Far Cry 6 gameplay, which we weren't able to see. That kind of went back and forth for a while there. Horizon Forbidden West gameplay reveal from yesterday, and Cyberpunk's new director. All these stories and so much more, because this is Kind of Funny Games Daily, each and every weekday at 10 a.m. live right here on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames. We run you through the nerdy news you need to know about. If you're watching live, you can correct us when we get stuff wrong by going to kindoffunny.com/wrong. If you want to watch live, you can watch later. If you don't watch live, you can watch later on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, or listen later on podcast services around the globe by searching Kind of Funny Games Daily. And to be part of the show, be sure to head over to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, where bronze members or above get to write in, and silver members or above get the show ad-free along with the exclusive daily post show. some quick housekeeping for you. Right after this, Kind of Funny is playing the Knockout City devs in the game. And if Kind of Funny wins, they get the Kind of Funny logo in the game. And if they lose, they're donating to Bernard and Millie Dunker Children's Hospital at Albany Medical Center. Oh, now I don't know what to root for. That's so much. That's so awesome. As always,
we just want our logo in the game. We'll donate to kids every now and then. You know,
like, I'm like, that's such a stressful stake.
Root for the logo, everybody.
As always, thank you so much to our Patreon producers, Blackjack and Tom Bach. Today, we're brought to you by Purple Mattress, but I'll tell you more about that later. For now, let's begin what is and forever will be the Robo Report. It's time for some news. We have 5 stories today.
Baker's dozen.
Hell yeah. And let's kick it off with Far Cry 6. We're just going to briefly go through what was shown. Obviously, if you're watching live, you may have just also watched it and heard those sort of initial reactions. But here's a very brief overview of everything we saw. And Blessing, you can add in if anything else needs to be highlighted. But it was a big focus on story, sort of laying out that revenge element, that kind of overthrowing element, using the classic ambitious open world. We saw a lot of the villain, Giancarlo, who discussed motivations of wanting to return things to the former glory. But of course, for him, that looks a lot different than it may for other people. So his version of former glory involves stripping people of freedom, taking those who oppose him to work in forced labor, which was interesting phrasing. It's slavery, essentially, forced labor, right? They talked about Yara being the location of the game being a powder keg, and you are the match, bringing in that classic Far Cry chaos. They discussed character choice and customization briefly. The idea essentially being they want you to feel like you are a guerrilla fighter, doing this by giving you these like wild, overpowered guns, really unique weapons. At one point, there was something that essentially shot CDs. We saw backpacks. They had different features. One of them was like levitating, like a jetpack. A bunch of stuff was shown. We saw an alligator wearing a shirt. There were jungles, shorelines, dead end towns, drama at the capital city, and a whole bunch of stuff. And of course, the big announcement here is the release date, which is October 7th. Blessing. Anything I missed in that?
No, I think you covered it all. The game looks really cool. It looks like it is going to be somewhat of a step up from Far Cry 5 when you look at the weapon customization, when you look at some of the things they've added. There are some sequences where they showed third person, which I thought was super interesting. And I have to assume that that's going to be more of a hub area thing where you can walk around while seeing your main character. And this is the first non-faceless main character in Far Cry, which is pretty interesting and really cool. But yeah, overall, like, I think it was a good showing. The October 7th release date is one to shout out. It's nice to get like a concrete answer on when this game is coming out, because if you remember, the game was delayed out of, I believe, this last February when Ubisoft delayed a bunch of their games. And so getting concrete info on that is interesting. I want to know, my biggest question is, where does that put Riders Republic? Because I want Riders Republic, and I want to know when that game is coming out, and I assume that it's coming out later this year. And so this being October 7th, I wonder if that means we're going to get Riders Republic sooner than later. I hope so.
Yeah. Do you think this is going to be the big game everyone's playing this fall?
The big game? No. I mean, it depends. Like, this is a weird year where anything can fall any sort of way. If Horizon Forbidden West hits this year, which it still could, but I know that's up in the air. If that hits this year, then I think that Deathloop, Dying Light 2, I'd also put in there. Like, that game had a really good showing yesterday. I think this is going to be one of those falls where it is, hey, it is what you love. I don't think there's not really a Cyberpunk this fall. There's not that one game that everybody's looking forward to. I mean, except for maybe the next gen version of Cyberpunk might literally come out this fall. But, aside from that, there's not a game so far, at least. E3 is right around the corner, so any of these things can change. There's not one game that seems to be defining this fall. For me, the game I'm looking forward to the most currently would be a Deathloop, but I know that's going to change from person to person. And with reports that we got yesterday about how the Switch Pro might be planned for this fall, that could put something like Breath of the Wild 2 for this fall. We already know that Pokemon Brilliant Diamond is coming this fall. Like, this really is one of those falls where I think we're going to get a sprinkling of different bigger releases that are very much speaking to people's unique tastes, and I think that's welcomed. I think that's dope, but I don't know if I would say Far Cry 6 is the game that people are going to be playing this fall. I think it will be one of many games.
Yeah, I do feel like that's sort of a franchise that falls into a weird category of being both mainstream and niche. Like it's an incredibly popular franchise, but the people that are really into it love that series, and the people that aren't usually just don't even give it the time of day. I'm really interested for this one because I have actually never played a Far Cry game, so I think I'm going to start with this one. And I'm curious as to like how this is going to feel as an entry point, because it does seem like they're going a little bit more for a serious tone. It's tough to say because they have like, you know, someone like Giancarlo as the big bad, and they didn't have as much goofy over the top stuff in this one. At least that's not the tone I got from it. Like sure there was, you know, the alligator in the shirt and the wild guns, but it did feel like a little bit serious. Do you think there is a chance that they take this almost too seriously where it sort of loses a little bit of that cachet?
No, because I don't think Ubisoft ever, like in their games, ever take things too seriously. I think that's a complaint that they often get, is that they'll oftentimes have themes that evoke politics, or evoke a lot of like social discussions and discussions. Like this Far Cry 6 seems to be all about social revolution, right, and pushing back against the system, and that wouldn't be nearly the first time Ubisoft has put out a game like that. All right, we've had The Division, we've had Watch Dogs Legion, and I feel like none of those games really ever feel like they are too confrontational with those conversations. Like if anything, those feel like thematic elements that paint a setting, or paint I'll just say, yeah, paint the setting, but don't necessarily explore that stuff too much. You know, like a Far Cry game feels like a game that takes place within a revolution that doesn't really have much to do with that revolution. Really, it is about going around shooting shit up and taking over encampments. That is Far Cry, and so I don't I don't expect too much out of this game in terms of that. I do expect a lot of what we've gotten out of traditional Far Cry, which is chaos, which is alligators wearing shirts, which is the dog in the wagon that everybody loves. My thing is, coming off of this last Far Cry 6 reveal, and I'm curious to hear from you as somebody who's not played Far Cry. I feel like the Far Cry games we've gotten, the last few ones, have been fairly iterative in terms of Far Cry 3. I remember getting, and that game blowing my mind with how good it was. I think the IGN review was talking about how the game is basically Skyrim with guns. That was the big a quote that people took out of that review and spread around, right? Skyrim with guns. And for me, playing that game, it really felt like that. Like I truly love that. And the games since then have felt like more of the same. And coming off of this last event, I was like, cool, this looks like it's going to be more Far Cry. It looks like they were improving some parts of it that seem really awesome. But Far Cry 5 for me was a game I fell off of. Far Cry 4 also for me was a game I fell off of. And with each new Far Cry, I feel like I play less and less because I am like, okay, yeah, this is more. Okay, yeah, like this is Far Cry that I like, but also is not doing too much for me to keep me in and keep me interested. My thing is Far Cry 6 going to break that? Is Far Cry 6 going to feel like something new and interesting? And for you, saying that this is going to be your first Far Cry that you jump into, is there something for you that's pulling you in? Like, what about it is making you want to play Far Cry?
Honestly, well, one, the like franchise history and how fondly everyone talks about it, and then two, I feel like Ubisoft in general has a certain kind of basic when it comes to games, but it's like a comforting basic. Like I jumped into Watch Dogs Legion as my like first full Watch Dogs game because I had only played a little bit of like I think two, just sort of prepping for like previewing Legion and stuff and covering Legion. And I was like, you know what? I had a pretty good time with it. And, you know, I know in your guys' review, you were pretty critical of it. And I think I agree with everything that was said. And I think it is just kind of an okay game, maybe good. Like it's not, you know, phenomenal, but I really enjoyed it because, you know, you had a drone that could shoot bees. And that's all I really came here for. You know, I think to your point where you're like, oh, it's always, you know, sort of on the goofy end. And it's the political statements are technically there, but they're more of a thematic backdrop for you doing over the top stuff. But yeah, I've really enjoyed that. It is formulaic, but it's like, all right, I know what I'm going to get and I don't expect a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And the good thing about
food for a lot of people, I
yes,
think. Like Greg Miller talks about how he's a fan of Ubisoft games. And I wouldn't really call myself a fan of Ubisoft games. I'm a
me
fan of
neither.
I'm a fan of some Ubisoft games. Rainbow Six Siege, I absolutely adore. And there are games here and there that I truly dig. But that formula of Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Watch Dogs, like that open world formula that they have for Ubisoft doesn't vibe with me as much as it might do for other people, because it is that comfort food of, hey, I just want to clear a map. Hey, I just want to go around, do side quests. Hey, I love
You go
Assassin's
there,
Creed because I get to
the
explore the open
objectives are
world.
there. Like, you turn
Yeah.
on the radio. Maybe the stations don't shuffle correctly, but it's fine. You put Spotify on in the background. It's
Yeah,
sort
and
of, just there.
Far Cry is that, but a first person shooter, which is going to speak to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think too, like it's nice as someone for me who isn't historically into FPSs, but I'll play games that have that as a core mechanic because they're not usually that taxing. Like you don't need to be like that good to be able to get through it. I like it as sort of a way to hone those skills in a setting that isn't as intensive of like as of Call of Duty or anything like that. So yeah, we'll see how it is when that finally drops. And speaking of more things that are coming out, or maybe not, or maybe later, or we'll see, Horizon Forbidden West gameplay reveal and that lack of release date. Again, you can go watch the Kind of Funny live reaction over on YouTube, but we will be doing a quick recap of what we saw. So definitely a highlight of human to human combat. We saw that really fantastic battle against the Tremor Tusk, which is just a giant robot elephant. I'm going to remember that as giant robot elephant, but I think the name is Tremor Tusk. New features include the ability to go underwater for an unlimited amount of time, rideables that aren't just the docile machines, a glider, the ability to pick up weapons that fall off of machines and use them. So when we saw that big laser machine gun thing, that was an example of that. A hook shot, which has a different name, but it's a hook shot.
Yeah.
A focus camera that lets you see climbable areas in the environment. And other highlights or debatable highlights are some UI potential improvements, maybe some combat improvements is sort of a lot of the reactions I saw online. But we did not get a release date. Blessing, anything else that we should highlight from this event?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. This was one where, if the Far Cry 6 event was one that I came off of going, okay, cool, more Far Cry, that's awesome, and it seems like they're improving some things. This Horizon Forbidden West one was, for me, one that got me hyped. This was one for me where I was like, oh, let's fucking go, because I really liked Horizon Zero Dawn, but there are things here and there where I was like, okay, cool, this is a good game, but the melee combat isn't doing it for me as much, or like the getting around in the open world doesn't feel as like fluid and as fun as some other games. Them adding the glider, them adding the grappling hook, them showing off melee combat, them showing off an ultimate ability, them showing off diving underwater. There were so many things in this one where it felt like they right after Horizon Zero Dawn, they took stock, looked around, read the reviews, and they were like, cool, people are loving this. How can we make this better? How can we push this forward more? And it felt like we got so much of what that looked like in this last reveal event, which has me hyped. I assume you watched it. Like, what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I loved it. I love that you brought up the comparison with like how Far Cry was, because we're going to talk a lot about other game reveals and what's coming up. And I had the exact same feeling. Like seeing this event reminded me of what it feels like when you're truly excited for a game or when you're really impressed by what you see. A lot of times with gameplay reveals, for me, it's just kind of like, all right, we saw this thing happening, and then yeah, it looked nice, or it looked like a little bit not as nice. We'll see when it comes out. And even though at the end of the day, we'll still see when it comes out. Watching it, it felt like I was watching something special. It felt like a marquee game. It, reminded me, it had an E3 vibes, even though we're not in E3 yet. We're in, E3 season, pre-3, if you will. But yeah, I was blown away by it. It was absolutely incredible, and I really liked the way they structured it. I watched it live with my community, and when we were watching the gameplay, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. They kind of just let us see it. They didn't say anything, and I sort of had mixed feelings on that. And then right after, they're like, now let's talk about what you just saw. So I thought that structure was super smart because it kind of allowed, anyone watching, myself included, to start piecing together things, having questions, having comments, and then you get some of that reinforced by the developer commentary, and you may have then been made aware of stuff you may not have noticed watching on your own when you have like the dev step in. The music was incredible too. Yeah,
they've done a good job with these game focused state of plays where we got this one. Last year we got the one for Ghost of Tsushima, and we also got another one for Last is Part 2. And the state of plays that they have for their bigger releases, that the bigger tentpole releases, I think do such a justice to those games. Like Ghost of Tsushima, I was always hyped for, but it wasn't until we got that state of play where they're like, cool, here's what moving through the world looks like. Here's how the wind blows that'll guide you to your next objective. Here's how the open world works. When the way they're showing these things off in the state of play feels so premium and pristine, and like you said, right, it kind of evokes that E3 energy, but in a way that feels even more quality than the E3. Like it feels like a PlayStation E3, which is a thing that I truly adore, and we're getting more of. And PlayStation also does the thing where they put they put their devs in front of the, I guess, black screen or whatever, and always have like the lighting on them that makes it feel like it always gives us the question of like, is this an engine? Like, is this a real person that's talking to us? But like it grants such a vibe to it that makes it feel like it's larger than life, and it works so well for what they do. And so I wanted to shout that out.
Yeah, I think they're really like starting to nail down that formula. You know, we all are really familiar with Nintendo Directs and know exactly what that vibe is and sort of what to expect. I think Sony is finally starting to get their footing on like what the state of play is and can be, which is really exciting. As far as what is next, I want to pull from a question that comes from AJ Schneck, I think. Sorry if that's mispronounced, who writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames and says, "Hey, KFGD crew, Sony showed off Horizon Forbidden West on Thursday, and everyone, myself included, seems to be pretty impressed. The only thing that really disappointed me was what we didn't see, any hint of a release date. It struck me as odd that they showed 15 minutes of gameplay, but didn't even put a release window out. But in a tweet after the show, they said they will have more to share very soon. Do you think it's possible that they have another trailer of some sort for the opening of Jeff's Summer Game Fest that includes the date? If it is a late summer/early fall game, they'll need to announce the date soon, as it's only a few months away. And I think that this is the most likely scenario if it does plan on being in that general window. So just to kind of summarize, do you think we're going to see this game again soon, and when do you think we'll see it? Will it be part of Keighley's thing? Will it be on its own thing next to E3, or will it just be a little bit later and maybe it's just that window between announcement and release is smaller than expected?
Yeah. So Keeley's thing, Kickoff Live, goes down right before E3. And I would go ahead and say no. I don't think the Horizon Forbidden West release date would appear there with more gameplay, simply because that's not something that PlayStation needs to do. People will show up for Horizon Forbidden West if you put it in its own state of play, or put it in its own PlayStation blog post, or communicate it yourselves. And so I don't think that would be the way to do it. Uh, I think there could be a few reasons why we're not getting a release date. I think one of them could be just the fact that they might not be confident that it's going to hit this fall, and so they don't want to continue to message that when that might not be the case. Get closer, get more sure, and then reveal the release date. We've seen PlayStation do that a lot in recent years. The God of War concrete release date we didn't get until I think a couple months before. And the times where we have gotten more concrete release dates for bigger titles, those ended up getting pushed. The Last of Us Part 2 is the one that comes to mind, where we got the state of play, we got a release date, and then 2 weeks later they're like, actually, this is getting delayed. And PlayStation doesn't like doing that. I think they like being the guys that feel like they have it together, that feel like they can say anything they say with confidence, and have their audience trust them. And so I think that's part of it. I could also see there being the case of them waiting to see what we get at E3 so they can position Horizon. You don't have to come out and say right now when Horizon's coming out. You can wait till July, and I think July would constitute as very soon. Allowing E3 to go by and allowing Nintendo to maybe reveal when they might put out Breath of the Wild 2 might give Sony more context of like, cool, Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out in November. Sweet. Let's not put Horizon Forbidden West out in November. I think that could be part of it too, because you don't necessarily need to speak right now when there are other people, when there's a bunch of people about to speak and about to clutter the fall and the next year with their releases and announcements.
As far as the possibility of time literally repeating itself and Breath of the Wild 2 coming out around the same time as Horizon Forbidden West, how far apart do you think those games need to be in order to not negatively collide with each other?
Say like maybe 2 months.
Like last time it was like not last year, it was like years ago. It was like 1 month, right? Was the window?
2017, it was like 2 weeks. I remember playing, because I started Horizon Zero Dawn and I got maybe like 8 hours in, 10 hours in before Breath of the Wild sidetracked me. So I think it was legitimately either the next week or 2 weeks later that happened. And I think that's the big thing, is you just give people the time and space to finish Horizon Forbidden West, and you're good. And that might be a month, that might be 2 months.
People are potentially going to get mad at however you answer this, so I'm sorry for asking. But we always have this conversation, especially with Horizon, about like the Breath of the Wild 2 fear. You got to stay out of Breath of the Wild 2's way, etc. Do you think Nintendo needs to worry about being in like about the opposite, about Horizon Forbidden West. No, not just
Absolutely
flat
not.
out
No.
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 Is it just because it's Zelda?
Nintendo doesn't
Because
give a
it's so
fuck.
much. Oh, okay, so it's just
Yeah.
like, but yeah, so you just don't think it has to be of any concern.
I think for Nintendo IP and their games just stand so much alone and aside from everything else that the people that are going to play Breath of the Wild are 1000% going to play Breath of the Wild. I think there is more concern on the other, and not even concern necessarily. I think at some point it's more about conversation than it is about actual sales. Horizon Forbidden West, you can put out literally on the same day as Zelda Breath of the Wild. It'll still sell well. It'll still sell fine. The PlayStation audience, the hardcore PlayStation audience and the hardcore Nintendo Switch audience are going to buy those games. Like those are games for those audiences. I think the bigger thing really is the the wider like marketing bandwidth that you can have, right? Like in the game space, like what are outlets going to be promoting in terms of guides, right? What are people going to be putting out articles about? What is the conversation going to be about? And how much as PlayStation putting out Horizon, right? Like how much do you want the conversation to be taken away from Horizon by something like Zelda? Like there'll still be a little bit of that the other way around. Like if you put out Zelda the same day as Horizon, there will still be some of that conversation taken away. But I think it is way more like Nintendo cares way less about that than I think the other way around.
Right. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. And before we move on to the next story, I have to know Horizon Forbidden West, 2021 or 2022? Call it now. What are you thinking?
My gut says 2022, but my heart says 2021. I'm gonna say 2021. I'm gonna say it.
Okay.
Yeah. Based on nothing really, just based on
I'm gonna
hopes.
go 2022 because it's more interesting if we have different answers. All right, moving on.
There you go.
Cyberpunk 2077 has a new director. This report comes over from Danielle Partis at GameIndustry.biz, who writes, CD Projekt has named Gabriel Amatangelo? Probably pronounced that wrong. As Cyberpunk 2077's new game director, the appointment follows the departure of former Quest director Matus Tomaskowicz, who has stepped down from the position and left the studio. Amatangelo joined CD Projekt in January 2020 as a creative director for Cyberpunk. Prior to the role, he worked as design director on Dragon Age Inquisition DLC, as well as lead designer on various expansions for Star Wars: The Old Republic. He will be tasked with leading the development of Cyberpunk's future expansions. Former Cyberpunk game director Adam will now focus on other leadership duties inside the company. This includes CD Projekt Red's 2.0 transition, which will see the studio alter its strategy in order to develop multiple AAA titles in parallel. Partis also takes the time here to mention how Cyberpunk still isn't on the PlayStation Store, and it was removed almost 6 months ago, adding in that joint CEO Adam Kaczynski, I think, told investors on Tuesday that he has, quote, no new information regarding Cyberpunk's return to the Sony storefront. So, Blessing, this news of this change, positive, negative, neutral, what are you thinking?
I mean, I'm personally neutral on it, but I think the Cyberpunk situation, of course, has been so messy, and it is not surprising to see there be shifts around. I wonder how much of these are going to be the right shifts. Like the biggest fault with the Cyberpunk situation really is on the higher ups who put out this game purely on the CD Projekt Red confidence, right? The fact that they thought they had a sort of magic that wouldn't allow them to fail. We're the guys to put out Witcher 3, and so we can put out any sort of big RPG. It is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. I think you put that on the upper management. You put that on CD Projekt, like both the publisher and like the higher ups at the studio. These shift arounds, I hope, point toward a better future for CD Projekt Red. But it's also a thing of like, I don't know, man. Like, how do you bring it back as CD Projekt Red? And I guess that's a question I'll flip back around to you. Like, what is the move for CD Projekt Red now? How do they get themselves back up to being the guys who just put out The Witcher 3 and being that studio that we all absolutely adore?
I think honestly at this point, it's like almost cut your loss clock. It's kind of not, because at the same time, like every time there's a patch note drop, everyone's covering it really in depth in a way that they maybe wouldn't as much or in the same way. if it wasn't such like a train wreck of a release. And by that I mean like you'll see things like and this is no shade to these stories because I think it makes sense to couch it this way because this is what people are talking about. But stuff like Cyberpunk fixing one bug introduces 8 more, or thing that fixed one thing breaks other thing. Like we're really seeing a lot of scrutiny and negativity around anything that they are doing with this game. So unfortunately, I think it's too big for them to even walk away from it. Nor do I think it's necessarily fair to fans and consumers who spent their time and money on the product and expect follow through with things. And it's funny, the idea of like, this quote of leading the development on future expansions. It's so hard to see the future of Cyberpunk when the present is in such disarray still. Yeah, I can't really imagine a world where we're excited about future Cyberpunk expansions.
It's such a fascinating thing because they put out the marketing document about a month or so ago that was them talking about what their strategy was as CD Projekt. Their strategy is to focus on The Witcher and the Cyberpunk brands and build them up. And so they still continue to have future plans for Cyberpunk. And because that is a pillar of their company. That is a pillar of what their strategy is. And to be fair, Cyberpunk sold fairly well. It's probably not keeping up anymore in terms of their sales projections for it because literally it's not being sold on the most popular platform right now. But initially, they sold a lot of copies based off of pre-orders, which speaks to something. That speaks to the fact that people want Cyberpunk. People, at least at one point, were going to show up for that and become fans of that. And I'm one to say that it's never too late to turn around a ship. We've seen it happen multiple times. We've seen it, and No Man's Sky is the one that we always reference when it comes to this. No Man's Sky was dead in water. People went from having crazy anticipation for it to being done with it within the span of that release, and that game was able to turn it around. Like I look at the Twitter replies to stuff they put out, and there are no traces left of people that are like, oh, fuck No Man's Sky, or oh, you guys lied to us or whatever. Like there is no more of that. It is pure celebration.
I
When
think
you
part
look
of that
at
though comes with the size of the studio though too, and like
for sure.
the perception of like who was at fault. Like I remember thinking of like the No Man's Sky story, and a lot of looking back on it was like, oh, this was badly marketed. This was like a developer going on TV talk shows and being asked like, "Hey, can you see each other in the game?" And he's like, "Sure," and then you couldn't, and then it was really awkward. Versus, I think with CDPR, like they almost, I don't want to say no better in the sense of like diminishing the team that made No Man's Sky because I think they're incredibly knowledgeable in their craft, but they have such a rich history in executing on a grand scale that this I think was seen so much more negatively for a slew of reasons. So, well, I think that No Man's Sky comparison is going to be made forever, and I don't think you're like wrong for bringing it up. But I think they have two very distinct flavors of, for lack of a less charged term, betrayal. That they're almost like I can't really see Cyberpunk having same arc in the sense that like No Man's Sky has won awards post launch for like improvements of games and things like that. I don't know if Cyberpunk is going to get an award for being like most improved or for DLC. Like it's just sort of hard to imagine.
I don't know, man. I think I don't expect it, but I think that's what they're going to want to go for. Like that is the only way forward for CD Projekt Red is to try and bring back Cyberpunk in some way. And that might look like building up the other products around Cyberpunk 2077 that aren't just the game, because obviously they have the Netflix show coming. They have Cyberpunk merch and toys and shit that they're going to want to push. And I'm sure, and they have DLC and all this stuff. I think for them, they're really going to try and push that stuff. And it is going to be about building up a fan base and building up a community that is going to be willing to want to get into those things despite the game. And hopefully while they're doing all that, fixing all the things that were wrong with the game, while also putting out a next gen version that hopefully runs well. If they're able to pull that off, I think that would be a starting stepping stone to put out there toward trying to build hype and excitement for Cyberpunk again. But it is going to be a tough road, right? Like the No Man's Sky, I think was I'm not gonna say an easier thing because it was a small team working on No Man's Sky, which in itself makes it very difficult. But No Man's Sky, thankfully, was one game that they had to focus on and they had to refine, and it's a game that has a lot of live elements to it that allowed them to really build and update and do all of that. Whereas Cyberpunk 2077 is more so one product that seemed like they wanted to have DLC releases with, along with a different multiplayer game or mode that they wanted to add along with it. With that, I guess it comes down to, all right, cool. How do you save the brand? Like, how do you save the IP? And that's an interesting thing that I don't necessarily have an answer for.
Yeah, kind of touching on that. When do you think? Well, first question: do you think we will see this game on Sony platforms?
Not PS4. I don't think the PS4
Not
version is going to
PS4.
come out again.
Okay.
The PS5 version, I could see coming out, but I think even that is somewhat of a question mark. Because I'm as Sony, Sony seems to be the relationship between Sony and CD Projekt Red is in a weird place. Every time somebody asks CD Projekt Red about the game on PS4, they're always like, "Hey, it's in their hands." You know, like we don't even know shit about when it's coming back.
It's like, look, we
And that's a
called
fucking
them.
that's a fucking weird place to be in. Like it very much feels like CD Projekt Red is like, we don't want to talk to Sony because they're pissed at us and we don't want to have that conversation with them. And so I think they right now they're probably heads down working on the next gen version and maybe praying to God that they can get a version on the PS5 specifically, and that'll give them the PlayStation presence again. But even that, I don't think is 100%.
So if it's tied to the next gen version, I'm going to give you another question. If you had to guess right now, what year are we playing Cyberpunk on the PS5?
Either later this year or early next
Later
year.
this year? That's
Yeah.
pretty soon.
I mean, that's what the roadmap said, and of course, it's CD Projekt Red, and so a roadmap means shit. But
I'm gonna go 2023. Like, why not?
Really?
Like, really
Okay.
cast it out there. I feel like Sony really made a powerful move and statement when they did it. Like, I remember where were you when you heard Cyberpunk wasn't on Sony platforms? Like, I was in my kitchen. I think I was like making like late night food, and I was just shocked. Like, I was so shocked. Like, it felt so extreme. I don't think it was unwarranted at all, obviously, but it was just such a big deal move that I think it's gonna have to really be like it can't just be good enough anymore. It needs to be undebatably appropriate in terms of performance, because I feel like if there's any problems with it, and there probably will still be problems because bugs are a thing. If there's any problems with it, like people are going to be looking at like, oh, I thought like this was up to the Sony standard. Like, is this the PlayStation? I think people would be a little bit more scrutinous of how it runs on PS5, and I think for that reason, they're going to be a little bit more hesitant to like open the floodgates to selling it on their platform again.
See, my thing is by 2023, can you even get people to buy Cyberpunk? I feel like for me, they're in this place where they kind of got shit. Or
I don't know. I bought something on my Vita the other day. Like someone's always going to buy something on some platform.
That's
I feel
fair.
like it's so worth putting out there, even if it's maybe not. It's not going to be what it could have been, but it could still be something, and I think that's probably better than nothing, which is what they have now. But yeah, we'll have to see how that shakes out. I feel like we'll be talking about Cyberpunk for several more years.
We'll be talking about Cyberpunk forever.
Maybe
because
forever,
it is going to be an
because
example.
It's like, I mean, how do you like the brand? The brand is gonna be really rough for like whatever CDPR does after this to try to conjure up excitement and also repair broken trust. I don't know how you come back from that or what the process is, but we'll see. I feel like there are still good games to be made from there, but I don't know when we're going to see one next. Maybe it'll be the one we already have. But anyway, Blessing, we got a whole bunch more to talk about. But for now, I want to take a break and talk about patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. You can go there with your questions, squad ups, but you can also get the show ad free. However, if you're hearing this, that means you didn't. So let us tell you about our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Purple. As the world becomes increasingly uncomfortable, we're all looking for as much comfort as we can get in. I know that's true, and that's why I love my Purple pillow. Purple makes mattresses, but they make pillows too, and the pillow is my favorite thing because it never gets too warm. You never need to flip it to the cold side of the pillow because both sides are the cold side of the pillow. It's fantastic. The technology, I don't understand it. Purple is comfort reinvented. Only Purple has the Grid, a stretchy gel material that's amazingly supportive for your back and legs while cushioning your shoulders, neck, and hips. And that's the thing. Joey, she's been living this life on this mattress, this beautiful Purple mattress, feeling so good because of this Grid. And I've been using the pillow and I love it so much. Because of how it's designed, the Grid doesn't trap air. Air actually circulates and flows through it, so you never overheat. And I love that. The Grid bounces back as you move and shift, unlike memory foam, which remembers everything. That's why memory foam has craters and divots here. It's exactly what you want it to be. Right now, you can try out Purple mattress risk-free with free shipping and returns. Financing is available too. Purple really is comfort for an uncomfortable world. Right now, you can get 10% off any order of $200 or more. Go to purple.com/games10 and use promo code games10. That's purple.com/games10, promo code games10 for 10% off any order of $200 or more. Purple.com/games10, promo code games10. Terms apply. I love Purple, really.
Moving on to some sort of inside baseball story. Patricia Hernandez will be Kotaku's new editor-in-chief. This comes from the Washington Post Launcher Division, which is like the game section of the Washington Post, who broke the story yesterday evening. It reads, Patricia Hernandez will be video game news site Kotaku's next editor-in-chief. Hernandez will be leaving gaming site Polygon, where she is currently culture editor, and will begin her new role June 2nd. Kotaku was Hernandez's first job out of college, where she worked for almost 6 years, making her way from freelancer to a full-time staff writer and eventually deputy editor. When Hernandez left Kotaku to become a senior editor at Polygon in 2018, former Kotaku editor-in-chief Stephen Totillo, whom Hernandez will succeed, wrote that she, quote, came out of nowhere, not even finished yet with college, when she was already tearing it up at Kotaku as a freelancer. What a joy it was to see what she was capable of. Quiet and unassuming, yet brilliant and bold. She'd tell head-swiveling stories about censored sex games on Steam, about Wildstorm-wrecked Smash Bros. Tournaments, about school kids driving their teachers to the brink with their Fortnite obsessions. I do remember that because I taught when Fortnite dropped on mobile, and it was rough. Hernandez did not respond for a comment when asked about this story, but I would like to pull in that she did tweet out today that she would be leaving Polygon. She didn't say anything else, but she did confirm at least that portion. And continuing with the story, Jim Rich, editorial director, Kotaku's parent company, Geo Media, did confirm the hire, saying that management had spoken to Hernandez. Skipping down briefly to a little bit more on Patricia's background. After her initial stint at Kotaku, Hernandez was hired as Verge's culture editor at the time, Laura Hudson as culture reporter. Some of her articles included, stuff on Twitch, stuff on YouTube. She then moved to Polygon, where she has worked for the past 2 years and was recently promoted to culture editor there, overseeing reporters on internet culture. And lastly, I do want to read these final 2 graphs of this report that sort of speak to where Kotaku is today. Hernandez takes over Kotaku following a series of high-level departures from the site. Totillo and well-known reporters Jason Schreier, Heather Alexandra, Gita Jackson, Cecilia, and others have departed over the past 2 years, with Totillo and Schreier citing what happened to Deadspin, a sports site also owned by Geo Media in 2019, as a key reason for the departures. Deadspin saw a mass exodus that year after management ordered employees to, quote, pick the sports, which angered journalists on staff who had cultivated a reputation for cultural reporting and expressive opinions. They argued it would betray the online community they had built. So that's sort of a quick reminder and window into the current state of Kotaku, but blessing. React.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations to Patricia. That is a big get for Kotaku. And it's a big get, especially because of the context you added there, right? Of the high profile departures that we've seen from the site. Jason Schreier leaving, Heather Alexandra, Gita Jackson. Like, these are names that a lot of people that are tuned into this space know and recognize and appreciate. And the fact that we've seen so many departures from Kotaku coming off of the Geo Media thing, right? Like, I feel like the site's been in kind of an iffy place. Like, I love the folks that work there. Obviously, I love the folks that write there. We read their articles all the time. But I think this is going to be big for them. This is going to be great for them. And I hope that this is a step in the right direction in terms of them being like, cool, we want to get talent. Like, we want to step back in the right direction after what was a misstep in how we handled a lot of our folks. We handled a lot of our talent. I really hope this is them being like, cool, let's get somebody talented to bring in more talented people. And so with that, yeah, again, like congratulations, Patricia.
Yeah, I think too, given her background of having like, started at that site and done so many great things and worked at so many other places, she's a wonderful fit for the role. And in the like, there's so many articles that have been written about this, just like gushing about how incredibly talented Patricia is. To which I absolutely agree with. Patricia is someone that I followed for so long, especially like her being like another Latino woman in the industry. Like she's been such an inspiration. Like I was following her work like probably before I even started freelancing, well into freelancing. She actually was the reason I got one of my like larger bylines, like one of my only like shiny bylines before IGN was a FIFA article I wrote for Kotaku, which was so cool because no one really cares about FIFA outside of like places that cover specifically sports sims. And I remember her approaching me about it and I got to write it. And to this day, that was one of the most extreme edits I've ever received in my life. She tore that thing up in a really good way. I think it like built everything so much stronger. And yeah, I'm really excited for her and this opportunity. And it's awesome to see a woman take such like a big role at such a major and reputable outlet. But I'm definitely, yeah, I'm with you with the light concern. I mean, I think what sucks in a lot of these scenarios, and obviously I can't help but think about everything going down at IGN and their editorial staff with the whole idea of parent companies affecting the day to day at an outlet, and I really hate that. I do because there are so many talented writers at Kotaku and so many other outlets that I've seen voice frustrations with that, and I'm hoping that under Patricia's leadership we can just really see some awesome things and make it as good of a place to work as it should be, given the amount of talented people there. So yeah, hats off to Patricia. I don't know when she's gonna formally announcement. I hope that this is like, I guess, going okay for her. I don't know what it would feel like if I had such a big role that got leaked, but at the same time, like as journalists, we like leak stuff all the time too. So I'm kind of like, whoa, like the calls coming from inside the house a little bit with this one. But again, big congrats to Patricia. And if you're not aware of her work, go ahead and check that out because it does great stuff. Moving on to our last bit of gameplay reveal, because there were so many gameplay reveals. Dying Light 2 gameplay, and we got that December 7th release date as well. Basically, the highlights from this was pretty much more of the same, parkour galore. They highlight a lot of the choices and how it will change the world, though I don't think they really broke down a lot of super specifics on what we'll see. Another highlight on factions.
I'm sure a lot of that stuff too is like narrative stuff that you wouldn't want to talk about. But like we've gotten
exactly
previous E3 demos of them showing off like you can flood a village and that'll affect your relationship with the people from that village. It's a lot of stuff that I think reminds me of faction stuff that we've seen in other games like Outer Worlds or Fallout New Vegas, that sort of thing. And they talked about too how that will have gameplay ramifications also, like maybe if you fuck up your relationship with a certain faction, that then means that locks you out of a certain gameplay mechanic, or you might get access to a certain tool that you can use throughout the open world, that kind of stuff, which I really dig. I think is going to be really additive to Dying Light.
Yeah, are you a Dying Light fan then?
Not really. Like I played the first one. I played the first one and I was kind of like, I should like this more, because
are you gonna check this one out then? Are you excited about it?
I am. Like, I really loved Mirror's Edge. Like, Mirror's Edge is up there as like, a game that I absolutely adore, and I'm totally down with zombie open world stuff. Like, I've that stuff should speak to me. And for some reason, I don't know, whatever the reason was, Dying Light, playing the first one, I appreciated it for what it was, but it just didn't vibe with me too much. And funny enough, there was a PAX I went to where they were showing off, I believe, Dying Light Bad Blood, which was a multiplayer like battle royale like mode for the game. Played a couple matches of it and had a pleasantly good time. And it was one of those ones where I was like, okay, there's something there that I do like. And so hopefully in future iterations, the game will pull me in more. And seeing what we got out of the stream that they did yesterday, I'm actually fairly excited for it. Not only does the next gen stuff look cool in terms of the graphical updates and how good character models look and all that stuff, but yeah, like the gameplay stuff, the additive stuff, like new tools they showed off during the nighttime. How the freaks come out in the night, and that's where things get really, really scary. That you have like an attachable UV ray that you can shine at enemies that'll make them go crazy, which I think is really awesome. And it's that kind of thing that I think could really take the game to the next level. Cool new tools like that. But then like the faction stuff spoke to me. and there was a lot of stuff in there in that stream yesterday. Again, that spoke to me, that had me like, okay, cool. I want to try this out for sure because this could be the Dying Light game for me.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. I'm also someone that didn't really, latch on to Dying Light 1 or anything, but I have heard pretty positive things about that game, especially the co-op, which I think a few people in chat have also highlighted Dying Light's co-op as a pretty good time from the franchise. So yeah, I mean, I like the parkour elements, which is like a huge part of the franchise, and like drop kicking zombies is always a good time, as someone in chat also mentions.
Are you gonna play Dying Light 2?
Yeah, I'm gonna play Dying Light 2. Absolutely. Like I really make an active effort to try and play everything that could be at all considered a big release, and then just generally anything that catches my eye that comes out in the year. Which y'all, a lot of games come out every year. It's kind of overwhelming. I know a lot of people feel like 2021 is a little bit quieter, and I do get what they mean when they say that.
This
but
month
there's so much
alone is
stuff.
crazy. Yeah,
there's stuff like all the time.
I mean, if we're talking about indie games, right? Like we just came off of Aerial Knights Never Yield.
Yes.
The month before we got Disco Elysium, which is at least a 30-hour game. We're about to get Stonefly, which I'm personally looking forward to because I got homies that work on that game. But then also Ratchet and Clank is coming up in June. Like Mass Effect Legendary Edition is literally 3 large RPGs that just came out. There's a lot of video game releases, and it's, in my opinion, impossible to play them all. But like I think that's the beauty of it, is that like there's so many releases that there's gonna be something for everybody, which is a beautiful thing. And Dying Light 2 being something that I'm in the middle of, in terms of like I'm not the kind of person that's like, I'm never gonna play this, or I totally hate this. I'm in the middle of, I don't love this, but I'm willing to try it out, and it looks like it's something that's gonna be fun. That's an exciting place for me to be, because that means that Dying Light 2 can only impress me.
Yes, but Dying Light 2 is so far away. If I want to know what is coming to mom and grab shops today, where would I look?
You would look at the official list of upcoming software across each and every platform, as listed by the Kind of Funny Games Daily Show hosts each and every weekday.
Nice. Out today is Port Royale 4 on Switch. You have strong feelings of Port Royale 4?
No, you didn't do the jingle.
Oh, what?
The yeah.
Yeah, you're right, I didn't. Yeah. Yes, Port Royale 4. Port Royale 4 is out. Eagle Island for Xbox One, which I was actually really excited to see this, because has anyone here played Eagle Island besides me, by chance? Okay. Eagle Island's awesome. Y'all should play it. I have a little plushie from Eagle Island that I got from
Eagle Island?
Eagle Island. It's a platformer, but it also has like roguelike elements, depending on. And then it has like omnidirectional throwing capabilities. If you have this little owl, and you can kind of like toss it at different enemies. And it has sort of this sprite art style. It was already on Switch, I think, and definitely on PC. I think it was on Switch. I'm like 90% sure. Yeah, and it's just a really solid, I think, low-key indie game, sort of hidden gem indie game. And I actually had first seen this because I went to, I want to say, is it MomoCon, I think was the convention that I went to, where I got to judge like different indie games, and I played like a whole bunch of them alongside other staff writers. Yeah, it was just really cool. And like that was one of the games that we had awarded as like a notable one of all the ones we played. So yeah, Eagle Island. Check it out.
That's awesome.
There's also a Song of Horror on PS4 and Xbox One, Eight Dragons on Xbox One, Trenga Unlimited on Xbox One PC, Crossbow Crusade Xbox One and Switch, Long Ago A Puzzle Tale on Xbox One, Wonder Boy Asha in Monster World on PS4 and Switch, 7 Years From Now Switch and PC, Beautiful Desolation PS4 and Switch, Super Arcade Soccer 2021 Xbox One, SRX The Game on PS4, Xbox One and PC, World's End Club on Switch, Color Dots Connect on Switch, Regina and Mac World on Switch, A Little Lily Princess on Switch, Love, A Puzzle Box Filled with Stories on Nintendo Switch, Family Mysteries 3, Criminal Mindset. Will I be lost if I didn't play Family Mysteries 1 and 2? I don't know. Route Me, Mail and Deliver Co. on Switch. And those are the stuff out right now. As far as new dates that have come out, Kiwi, a co-op game where you play as two birds running a chaotic mailroom, comes to PS4 and PS5 on August 31st. And now that I'm saying it, I don't remember if that's also, I think that's multiplat, the like game with the little birds, but I don't fully remember the top of my head. But that game looks adorable. I think I saw it at like a recent indie showcase or something, and it looks really cool. Deals of the day.
One more new date I wanted to shout out.
Yes,
I'm trying to find where it was. Did you see the one for Chicory? that indie game.
Oh, you're right. I'm so glad you brought that up. Where
PlayStation
it's like you have the
tweeted about it.
paintbrush and everything. Yeah, I've been
Yes.
interested in that one. The date, if
Yeah,
anyone
you
can.
can keep going. I'll pull it up from the PlayStation
Okay,
blog because they
awesome.
literally just tweeted about it.
I'm gonna read deals of the day then, and then just jump in when you have that date.
Yep.
Deals of the day, we got Uno via Uplay, which is $3.39 on Fanatical. You may be like, why do I need Uno? I already have the cards. You never have enough Uno. Get it? Uno's awesome. And then between today through June 6th, 2021, all Hitman 3 players can play Paris for free. Whether you own Hitman 3 or the Hitman 3 free starter pack, you can explore everything in Paris, from the showstopper mission to the upcoming elusive target, the Black Hat.
All right, I think I got it.
Yes.
Push square.
What's up?
Push square. Chicory, A Colorful Tale, is coming to PS4 and PS5 June 10th.
Okay, awesome.
There you go.
Thank you so much for highlighting that. I think there might be a demo available for it too on PC. It was part of that Ludo Narracon that happened a few weeks ago, where they highlight like narrative driven and different indie games. Before we head out of here, let's jump into one quick thing from reader mail, which again you can write into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, where you can get the show ad free. But we have Jeffrey P. Long, who writes in and says, "Hello, Janet and Blessing." It's close. Yesterday, I think we were all disappointed in the lack of Switch Pro news. However, we did get a lot of video game news, such as Horizon gameplay and Shadow the Hedgehog bling. What from yesterday's announcements and showcases stood out to you most?
I
think for me it was I guess in terms of seriousness, obviously the Horizon stuff was the most exciting thing, but in terms of stuff that will live with me longer, the Olympics game, where you don't have like Sonic and Mario, but instead you have a regular person wearing a Sonic costume. I watched that trailer so many times yesterday, and it's so funny. And just the crossover stuff in general, I feel like they're really leaning in to the meme power of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is the state that he's most powerful in. So that is the highlight for me. Watching Sonic dunk on real people, loved it. It gave me GameCube energy era vibes, which I appreciated.
Yeah, this is a tough question for me because, like, what stood out to me yesterday between Horizon Forbidden West, a beautiful gameplay reveal, and Sonic the Hedgehog bling, and it's like, they're both equally amazing. Actually, quite honestly, like there are quite a few things that stood out to me. The Dying Light 2 reveal really was one that caught me off guard in terms of how into it I was. And so I gotta shout that out. But a new Sonic game announcement, again, like crazy, really cool. I wish we got more details on it, but for what they showed, still pretty hype. 2022, and then of course, Horizon Forbidden West, all the gameplay stuff they showed off, definitely felt like they not only lived up but exceeded expectations for me in terms of what they showed with the gliding thing and like the grappling hook and all the different elements they showed had me very impressed. So my answer is all of it.
So a cop-out answer. Got it. As far as kindoffunny.com/you're wrong, some quick corrections to make for y'all. Well, usually these are more like on the clarification end, and today's no exception. For the Breath of the Wild and Horizon gap, it was apparently 4 days, according to nanobiologists.
Really?
And Pixelated Soul also says Horizon Zero Dawn released February 28th. Breath of the Wild was released that same week, March 3rd. That's horrifying.
That makes a lot of sense because it really did cut my gameplay in half, and I know it did for a lot of people who started Horizon Zero Dawn and didn't finish it because Zelda just came out way too soon. Yep.
Also, Kiwi confirmed his multiplat on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And then other than that, just some like highlights about Far Cry 6's accessibility, which if you go to the live reacts, you can hear Steve talk about all of that. And then someone mentioned that I said backslash when reading URLs. I believe I've only ever said slash, which is, I don't know if you want me to say whether it's forward or back. But
you say backslash. And
do I say backslash?
You say backslash every time, but also it's
really?
fine.
No way. Are you serious?
Who cares?
I feel like I say slash. Do I really say backslash? Is
you
that
say
true?
Backslash, yeah. But also, like, really? I think that's totally fine.
That's so upsetting.
Like, if anything, you're more specific.
That was also because I couldn't tell you. I think Nick always did, right?
I think Nick does the same thing.
I'm gonna have to go. I hate going back and like watching stuff that I'm in because I just don't feel like
it's also impressive to me though because I couldn't tell you which one's a backslash or forward slash.
Well, it's definitely
the fact you consistently get it,
right? It's definitely forward slash in websites. not a backslash.
I'm supposed to say / I was told by Fox of the Future that I say backslash. I feel like I just say slash. I'm gonna have to re-listen to it, but I don't want to because I don't want to have to face that I have a different perception of reality than what's actually happening. That's horrifying. But I think that's basically it. Besides, small expansions on little things here, plus some like, oh, this came out right now, but I'm like, I'm not going to address that because I haven't been able to look at the article itself. But thank you guys so much for writing into those your wrongs and adding those clarifications. And if you're watching live on Twitch, what can people expect for the rest of the day? I know we have that Knockout City stream with the devs happening right after this. Anything else that people should know about on Twitch?
No, that's the big thing, right? Look forward right after this. We're doing the Knockout City competition. It's us versus the devs. If we win, again, we're gonna get our logo in the game. If they win, we donate to charity. But even still, root for us. We really want our logo in the game. And I think I should also shout out the host for next week. Monday, we're taking the day off. There's no kind of funny live content that day, and so don't look forward to KFGD or anything on Patreon Live on Monday. But then on Tuesday, it's gonna be Greg and Gary Whitta. On Wednesday, it's me and Andy. Thursday, Greg and Tim, and on Friday, it's Greg and me on Games Daily.
Nice. And of course, this has been Kind of Funny Games Daily, each and every weekday, live right here on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames. We run you through the nerdy news you need to know about. And of course, we have a Patreon post show for those who have subbed at the silver level of patreon.com. I do say backslash, right? I do.
Yeah.
I say backslash / Kind of Funny Games.
I just say slash because I'm impressed.
I do say backslash. You're right. Yeah. I noticed right now. I'm so sorry to ruin the outro.
But here's the thing: slash is just a safe word. The reason why me and Greg say slash is because we don't know which is which, and so it's the same thing. The fact that you commit is impressive.
The fact that I didn't know I was doing that is also impressive.
But she still commits, though.
If you want me to say the correct slash, please go to patreon.com / Kind of Funny Games. So stick around for that. Otherwise, next time, it has been our pleasure to serve you. Bye.